And in fact, what drives our external communication is our internal self-talk.
Hello and welcome to our Spotlight series. I'm your host, Carla, Egan, and today we're talking to a coach with over 20 years of corporate experience in both coaching and mentoring. She's a lady of very many talents, and one that we're focusing on today, and that's mastering good communication with people that you work with, people that you have relationships with, and more importantly, and the less talked about, is mastering good communication with yourself. Our guest today is Suzanne Glendenning from Quantum Results, and Sue joins us from Victoria. Welcome.
Thank you very much. It's lovely to be talking with you on this sunny morning in Melbourne.
Now, our topic today, Sue, is on communication. And while not many people would consider upskilling themselves in this area, how we talk to ourselves does play a significant role in our lives and in our results. So let's jump in and let's talk about self-talk. And I want to ask you firstly, what is self-talk?
It's a really interesting topic, Carla, and we talk about communication a lot. But if I was to say to you, what is your best form of communication, or what do you believe communication is, you would probably be talking immediately about external communication. And that's where most people go. And in fact, what drives our external communication is our internal self-talk. And that's what we're saying to ourselves. That's what we're thinking about. It's what we're feeling. It's all of those expressions that we have and our emotions. All of that is our self-talk. And it's that little voice that can sometimes creep in and say, are you really sure you can do this? And are you really, is this absolutely the right thing for you? Are you good enough? Am I smart enough? All of these things. That's all self-talk.
And there's probably a few people listening to this conversation thinking, yes, this applies to me. I mean, some self-talk is good, right? Some of it can be positive and motivating and get you, out of bed and doing the things that you might be putting off. And there's that other self-talk that can be destructive. And so where does this internal dialogue come from?
And that's really interesting. I talk a lot to my clients about, who's driving the ship, who's actually in charge. And we talk about the conscious and the subconscious mind, or the unconscious mind. So that is where your self-talk comes from. It's all coming from the unconscious mind. And it's driven, like we go on autopilot a lot of the time and don't even realise it. So when you're talking about positive self-talk, and that's people doing affirmations and saying, I really know I can do this, and, I'm sure I can achieve this, and that's wonderful. And that's doing your affirmations is your positive self-talk, but it's the negative self-talk that can be quite destructive because we're often not sure where it's coming from. And it's buried deep in our subconscious. It comes from your belief systems. And you can be saying all day long, I'm great, I'm so good at this, I'm an achiever, I'm successful. But if that little voice inside you, and you have a deep belief that says, I'm not really that good, I don't deserve to have this, I'm not worthy, I'm not smart enough, that will always override. And that is what is so destructive, and but it doesn't need to happen. But that's where it's coming from. It's coming from your subconscious mind, and that's our autopilot, and that's what drives us most of the time, and we're not even aware of it.
Yeah, I picked up a key word that you said a couple of times, Sue, and I wrote it down: autopilot, because it feels like it is on autopilot, and sometimes you don't even have a real awareness of what's happening in the background, because it's that voice seems to be there the whole time, right? So how do you interrupt that pattern? How do you said driving the ship. How do you take control back so that autopilot or that self-talk is benefiting you rather than being probably more destructive?
I love the way you describe, taking control back, and that's exactly what it's about, and I often say to people, it's time to take control again. You can be in charge of your life, and you can be back in control, and you can choose your self-talk, and you can choose what you believe. But if a belief is buried quite deeply, and some of these can come from childhood, and quite often people don't even realise it or remember, but they're buried quite deep, and it can even be well-meaning parents or teachers or siblings who will say, well, you're not really very good at that. So you'll take that on board, and that's just stored away as a file. So one of the techniques that I use with my clients is hypnosis, and it's incredibly effective because it cuts straight to the subconscious. So the type of hypnosis I use is like a deep trance, and it's just almost saying to the conscious mind, we just need to park you for a minute, and you just need to be quiet and sit over there, and we're going to be talking to the subconscious mind and really get into those beliefs. And you can change a belief. It's like a computer program. You can remove an old program and install a new one, and it's incredibly effective.
I love that analogy that you can just reprogram ourselves, because, I mean, our minds are so complex. And interesting that you use hypnosis as one of your tools to change, because, beliefs, you mentioned that in earlier on, and I was going to ask you about that. So that's one of the patterns, I guess, that you could interrupt those thoughts, that autopilot, that self-talk that is destructive or can be destructive.
It's finding what the core reason is. It's finding the core issue. And people often come with presenting problems, and they're very real, but the presenting problems aren't always the issue that needs to be dealt with or handled. So what we do is go in and find what the core issue is and deal with that and change that, and then everything else can change. So your self-belief is a huge thing. I have a lot of, particularly women, even corporate women, who appear on the outside to be very confident and self-assured, and in fact inside they're not. It's a bit like the duck paddling along and looking really cruisy along the top of the water there, and underneath the water those little legs are paddling like mad to sort of just keep going. So self-confidence, self-esteem are two big issues that people do talk to me about, but easily fixed with getting into the core problem, looking at what the real issue for them is, and then making the change, assuming that that's what they want to do. You have to really want to change.
I think that's a big key part with anything in life. You've got to want to make the change in order for it to start to manifest. So you mentioned that you work with women, and particularly women in careers. What type of results have they had from working with you that's moved them from where they were to where they want to be? Do you just want to share something just for our listeners to get a feel for?
It's interesting that a lot of women don't actually know where they want to be. They just focus on being not where they are now. I just want to be out of this situation and out of this thinking. So we do start to then focus on, well, okay, what would you like? What does it look like for you when you're feeling fit and healthy and confident and happy in your work? And I talk a lot about life balance. I don't believe in work-life balance. It's just life balance. So to get to that point, I've discovered with women particularly, they are really prepared to do whatever they need to do to get there. And I had a client contact me just a couple of days ago, and she very kindly said, "You've changed my life." And of course, I haven't. She did the changing. I was just privileged to be on that journey with her. But she said, "I've trusted you so much," and trust is another big issue. It's a critical issue, in fact. So it's changing. She changed careers, and she's taken a much more responsible job with her new career. Didn't believe she could actually do that. Belief again. I had another client recently who was really struggling with a very male-dominated world, and she said, "Now I have the confidence to." And I'm quite small, and she's the same height as me, so I know what it's like walking into a boardroom with all those 6-foot men. And she said, "I can now walk in with confidence, keep my head up." And she said, "And I'm heard now during meetings." She said, "I used to be talked over, ignored, patronised." And she said, "Now my voice is heard. I have my voice back, and I have my confidence back." She said, "I have me back." And she said, "I actually believe that I can do anything."
That's a wonderful example of the inner dialogue, supporting you, moving you past those barriers, but also, a testament to the power of some of the techniques and the relationship that you build with your client. So I really appreciate you sharing that. Thank you. My last question for you, and while people can find you on our directory, and we're delighted to have you listed, Sue, what does it mean for you joining the coaching directory, for you and your business?
I think being part of the coaching directory is being in an environment with so many other coaches, so you can share information and you can connect with each other, because most of us specialise in a certain area, and it's great to connect with other coaches who may be different to you and whose services that you might be able to use. But again, I go back to the word trust. It's a trusted environment, because I know people, you don't just take anybody there. People are screened. They're all good, qualified, reliable coaches, and I think it's a great opportunity for coaches, but also for people to be able to find their coach, find the right person for them, and have the choices. Life's all about choices.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, that brings us
possible.
Well, look, that brings us to the end of our Spotlight interview, and thanks, Sue, for being in the Spotlight today and taking us on that inner journey of that inner voice that everyone can relate to. And so I appreciate you sharing what you do as one of many, many talents that you share. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Carla.
And thank you to our listeners for joining us and following our Spotlight series. If you enjoy our show, please rate and review us, and be sure to catch us on the next episode. This is Carla Egan from the Coaching Directory, where we connect you to your ideal coach.